Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Grumman Pilot's YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about supplemental type certificates for our Grummans. And these are all the ones at 12 that Ken Blackman and Air Mods Northwest had that have been transferred to the GPA. So now we can continue to support the fleet with the STCs. You can modify your airplanes, and for those of you who have these STCs that are missing paperwork and other documentation the FAA will require, we'll be able to get you documentation to cover that. So those are our things that we're working on. We're just happy to have that. We've seen the paperwork and the transfer is in-house, and we are waiting for, again, our original certificates to arrive. So now let's talk about these 12 STCs. And let me pause here for a minute before we talk about the STCs and thank those around the country who have helped make this possible. Nancy Harrison couldn't have done it without you and others. I just wanted to say that this was not a solo effort, and we're glad to support the fleet. Now, stand by for some illumination on what the STCs do. Now, the snout conversion is basically you take the nose bowl and all of a cheetah, the motor mount and the engine, and you hang it on the front of a two-place airplane. So basically taking the front off the airplane of one aircraft and putting it on a two-place airplane. And that's the snout conversion. The CG is a booger bear, and 2 people have done this conversion over the years. I wish I had a picture of them. The next one is taking a dorsal fin that you see on the 4-place airplanes like the Cheetah and the Tiger, and we put that on a 2-place airplane for stability with the 0320 engine, so it gives a little more lateral stability to the aircraft. Can't increase the rudder, but we can give it a little help. And here it is on a 4-place airplane, but that's what it would look like on a 2-place as well. And finally, here's the one that Ken is probably most noted for. It's the aux fuel. It can either be a 10-gallon system or a 20-gallon system. And along with that comes a weight increase, which a lot of people want to have in 2-place airplanes with extra fuel because you don't have a lot to work with. And if you want to carry a couple of people and go someplace, you need a little wiggle room there. So the Air Mods Northwest aux fuel tanks are coming, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And for those of you in a quest for even more horsepower, if 125 or the 0320 is not enough, you can put the 0320 from out of a Cheetah, and now you can have 160 horsepower on your 2-place airplane. So there's an STC for that. And here's one we all know about. It's putting a centimeter propeller on a Tiger. Nothing really fancy about that, but right now we can just order a propeller, and the centimeter prices for this year went up, I think, like $100 according to Dave Fletcher. That's putting them just a little bit north of $5,000. And this STC is taking the carbureted 0360 off of a Cessna with its constant speed propeller and putting it on a Cheetah. And there is one flying like that, and it worked out really well according to everybody that flew it. And for those of you who have done the J2A conversion, which is converting the 0235 L2C to the J2A conversion, you want to be able to put a 6-inch propeller on there, and this is for the 72 CK 52 to 57 pitch prop. Makes a much better airfoil than the Macaulay and helps translate some of the power into thrust and speed for you. Now, what's good about this is some of the optional oil coolers you can put on the 2-place airplanes. The 2-places didn't come with an oil cooler. They had a piece of ductwork that blew on the oil temperature sensor so it could pass certification, but they really do need to have an oil cooler. And when you do the bigger engine conversions like the J2A, you need to have an oil cooler as well as a 6-inch propeller and the dynofocal mount and a carburetor with an accelerator pump. Another one that Ken had was the ability to put the 0320 A series, C series, and E series on your 2-place airplane, and then use either the 74 DM6 or the 74 DM7 series of propellers, again, to take the horsepower and translate that into thrust. Now here's a really useful one. Our standard torque tube didn't have any bolts in it, and then for a while they tried taper pins, and so this ability gives us the drawings to be able to drill the close tolerance bolts. Now here's a torque tube with just the 1 bolt through the glued structure. Now here's what the 2 bolts look like, and those are close tolerance bolts, and they are drilled undersized and then reamed to the exact dimension, and then the close tolerant bolts are put in. So it's a nice STC to have to strengthen the torque tubes in our aircraft. And by the way, all of our airplanes use the same torque tube. Now this STC, putting a hatch shelf in a two-place airplanes, is really nice because you're so limited for cargo space to be able to put something very light back there, a pillow or your hat or something, again, very light that's not going to cause any structural damage to the airplane. It's nice to have that availability. I don't see anybody beating down the GPA's door for this STC, but it gives you the ability to hang an AA5A, the Cheetah engine, on an AA1C. Then you'll need a Cheetah cowling and some other stuff, but here's your ability to do that. Now this STC, the relocation of the oil cooler is a nice one to have. First off, as you remember, the two-seaters did not have an oil cooler, so there's a lot of options. Now here's a ADC one that's on the firewall. The Oberg was also very much like that. But what we're talking about here is what we're seeing here is a remotely mounted on the firewall. Now this is the one that's flat mounted with hosing on the firewall. What we're looking for is the triangular mount one that we like to have. Now this is what they look like in all the four-place airplanes right there behind the number 4 cylinder. But we're looking for a triangular mount to direct the flow. It'll be mounted on the firewall and will carry air to it with ductwork, and here's the ductwork on the 6-cylinder. So our next steps, we're waiting for the original copies of the cover pages for the STCs to be delivered to us. Then we're going to ask for the original approved data that went with the STC so that we'll be able to make that available to the fleet. And we're consulting now with folks on the usefulness and the cost and the pricing for these STCs. So folks, stay tuned. We hope you found all this useful and informative. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good day now flying your augmented Grumman.
John, listen to me. This ends here. If Jerome Wiesman got wind of this, the whole agency would go ass over tea kettle. And who knows what would be left after all the shit got cleared away. Stop.